Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 128 of the Revive Yourself podcast. Here we go.
Are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? Have you got a health issue that just won't go away no matter what you try? Then welcome to the Revive Yourself podcast, where we reveal the secrets to long-lasting health by getting to the root cause of problems that no one else is talking about. So you can have more energy, clear skin, healthier hair, a leaner physique, more confidence, and most importantly, do the things you love and live the life you deserve. Here's your host, Ryan Martin.
Hey guys and girls, and welcome back to the show, episode 128. We are moving on. So, today is going to be a solo podcast with myself. Before we get to that, I just want to mention, as always, the show today is brought to you by reviveyourself.co. If you head on over there, we've got all our, you've got access to all our fantastic articles and other podcast episodes, 127 other episodes at the moment that you are all available from the best doctors, nutritionists, natural health coaches in the world. And we've also got our shop, which is, as I keep mentioning, it's been updated in the background, but we've got fantastic products there for you. As I mentioned last week, we had Casey Crazy, the owner of Living Fuel on, which in my opinion is the best all-round product on the market bar none. That's underneath the Evolution Organics tab. If you click there, we've got some phenomenal products from Evolution Organics, also from Ancient Purity. Also from the Finchley Clinic at the moment, and I'm just reviewing some fantastic products from Ancient Purity. You've just got their Sacred Harvest Whole Hemp Oil Infusion, proper CBD oil, organically grown, extracted in the best manner possible. Lots of CBDs. 67% of CBD oil on the market is actually not even CBD oil. 69% actually, I think it is. They've done tests like this before as well, where they've gone to test products and supplements which say they've got certain things in, and these supplements haven't even got the ingredients or the product that they're meant to be sent in them. Happens a lot. So you've got to be very careful with the CBD. I actually met with Tom Staveley of Ancient Purity yesterday, went through asked him those questions, and about their CBD, their whole hemp oil infusion means you get all of the plant. People try and extract certain molecules, and it doesn't work that way. You need to have the whole complex for these things to work, and it's absolutely phenomenal. If you don't look into the benefits of hemp and CBD, then literally it's a broad spectrum and it covers so many bases. Also got this hydrogen water, which is being found to show phenomenal properties in anti-aging, skin health, bone density, respiration, joint health, mental clarity, like for your brain. So that's something else I'm testing out, as well as some just other products that will be going on the market. Things for skin, pearl powder, and royal jelly from the bees, which is like an ancient method from China, which is very, very powerful. So it's all going on behind the scenes. We want to be adding some great products. As always, we've got our whole house filtration system, water filtration systems from Aquitaire on the site. If you've got a 1, 2, 3 or 4 bed house, these are going to be phenomenal for you. Hard or soft water, you can put that in and you can order them from us. They take out 99.9% of all the nasties that are in your water, from heavy metals, parasites, bacteria, etc. And we've also got our Aries Tech EMF blocking devices, and they've got the new 5G model, which is phenomenal for blocking all your electromagnetic frequencies that'll be around. You're bombarded with them. The research, if you haven't listened to my episode with Dr. Deborah Davis on EMFs, then you definitely need to. She's the world leading authority on that topic, and it's quite scary. You need to be doing what you can to block your exposure to these things. We'll be actually having a few more episodes on that in the future. Lots going on there in terms of trying to get people to understand what they need to do to stop, or at least lower their exposure to EMFs, because 5G coming out around, and looking at 6, 7 and even 8G coming out in the next couple of years. It's a little drink of water there. And as always, if you're heading over to blueblocks.com for your blue blocking glasses, put in the code REVIVE, you get 10% off. That's BLUBLOX.com. And if you head over to essentialoilwizardry.com for the best essential oils on the planet with Dr. Nick Berry, put in the code REVIVE in small letters, you get 10% off there too. And these will be on my site imminently. So, without further ado, we're going to get into today's episode, which is going to be all about longevity, the blue zones, and what you can do to stop from aging, anti-aging. So we're going to move on from there, and let's get into it. So, guys and girls, I want to talk today about anti-aging longevity, really, because one of the things that we do with natural health, you see people in the Himalayas, for example, living to that 120, and if we look back into some of the history, there's people saying that they've managed to live far longer than what we're living today. On average, people living 77 years old and a bit longer if you're a female. And I wanted to get into this because so much is going on today in terms of trying to increase lifespan. Lots of biohacking going on, which, biohacking, certain things I understand. For example, being able to block frequencies and use infrared lights and etc. Then there's like the use of NAD and certain things that we can do. But biohacking, a lot of the time for me, it's like you're trying to hack something off, or you're trying to try and to get somewhere very quickly that usually takes a lot of time to learn. You're trying to do a hack, where I understand what's going on, but most people that do these hacks are people that are overly stressed, live manic lives, and they're trying to almost trick their body into thinking something's happening when it's not. And certain things I am interested in. I am interested in internal things you can do in terms of anti-aging, especially when it comes to nutrition. But for want of a better way of doing things, they always say success leaves clues, and I don't want to go too much into biohacking today, anything like that. I want to talk about what happens in the blue zones. Now, I don't know if any of you know what the blue zones are, but these are areas of the world where there's there's people that live over 100. A lot of people live over 100, because this is the key. Because at the end of the day, there's lots of stuff going on today. There's a thing called Radfest, which goes into like longevity, trying to get us to live longer. Radfest, but some of the things that they're doing, it's trying to almost treat the human body as like almost as a robot in certain ways, which are, and there's all different ways that you can that aging occurs. The human biological system is very complex. It's the immune system, it's the cardiovascular system, the bones, the muscles, the cells, the mitochondria, and there's made different paths we need to target if we need to live a long time and feel good doing it. And so that you need to implement a multimodal approach. For example, there's a guy called Dr. Dale Bredesen, who's got a wonderful book out called The End of Alzheimer's, and he's cured people with hundreds of patients who've had Alzheimer's and dementia. But, the mainstream medicine hasn't caught up to it because it's a multimodal approach. I mean, he's using laser lights and on the head and a ketogenic diet, and high dose in fish oil and hyperbaric oxygen chambers and using all sorts of things. His book, by the way, is called End of Alzheimer's. It's a great read if you want to look about neural degradation. But all this stuff, it all applies to aging, and this is why we need a multimodal approach. And this is why the blue zones are so good, because lots of us in the modern world are living on so much stress that we try to do all these things and hack our way out of aging. Where the blue zones show us that we don't need to do that all the time. I don't know if you're familiar with a book called The Blue Zones. It's by Dan Buettner, and he wandered around the world doing research into a lot of these areas where people are living disproportionately long periods of time. And there are actually over a dozen areas in the world which we find a high number of centurions, or centenarians, they're called, people who are living 100 years or longer. Icaria, Sardinia, and Nicoya, I'm saying that right. And what he did was he created almost like a Venn diagram of all the overlapping characteristics that we see in many of these societies, and a lot of the stuff that we can take and implement into our culture. And many of the tactics are very basic, but the trick is to weave them all together. And there's quite a few that go on, but there's 12 things that all the 12 blue zones sort of overlap, and they all do. And I'm going to go through those 12 because these may not be cool and sexy, like getting yourself injected with NAD and taking NAR, but and then doing all these things, wearing blue blocking glasses and putting electrodes up your nose and doing this. But these are the things that have been been going on for a long period of time and been getting results for these people. And funny enough, it's living how nature intended us to do and how humans are meant to live. Because none of us have really got any business in doing probiotic coffee enemas, for example, like that, if we're not doing things like stopping smoking, and this is one of the first things that these guys don't do, and that's they don't smoke. That's not rocket science. I'm not sitting here saying we all know smoking's bad, even though back in the day the doctors used to promote it and say, smoking's good. And this is one of the things I always talk about with EMFs, because people out there still saying, EMFs are not bad, they can't be proven, even though there's so much research out there showing that they can be proven. It just reminds me of back in the day, doctors saying that smoking was fine, and then 55 years later, we all know, and look what's happened there. So, I don't want to come on here and say, look, don't want me to tell you to take a drug and a cigarette and you're going to live a long time, don't smoke a cigarette, because it's obvious not smoking. But what most people don't realise is the amount of air pollution we have. And I was talking to Tom about this, Tom Staveley, last night. He said London especially is 3 times this year it's been the most air polluted place on the planet. And even if you go into hotels where they've got so many of these fragrances, that the hotels in Vegas, for example, have been taken for millions of pounds. People go there and they can't sleep. And it's not because they're on loads of drugs, it's because the air quality and the pollution going there. And last year, this is people don't realise how bad it is. Last year there were over 150,000 cases of diabetes based on pancreatic dysregulation directly related to air pollution. So, you can look that up. The same can be said of cardiovascular disease, stroke, etc. People who don't smoke yet are severely affected by air pollution, and this is a problem. So what can we do about this? Well, there's 2 things that you can do. One, obviously, you can move out of the city. Well, 3 things. You can actually move out of the city and try and get around more areas that have got more greenery, more forest, more plants, and that's one of the things you can do as well in your home. You can look into plants that have been shown to give you cleaner air in the home. Very, 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 very important. There's if you look at the other thing you can do as well, you can obviously get air cleaning devices or devices. There's some pretty good air filtration mechanisms. HEPA have got one, a very good one. Ala Air have got some as well. So HEPA, HEPA, air filtration mechanisms, and Alia Air, ALLER, AIR. Very, very good. And then there's you get different ones. You can get ones that do a great job at really filtering out some small particles. In fact, HEPA have got some really good ones. And there's also one called Molecule spelled with a K. This is like a standalone filter you can put in your home or office to tackle this issue with air pollution. There's a few really good German companies out there, and the name's just eluding me. Some of these you have to replace the battery and filtration system in them. These German companies, you don't with some of them. So have a little. I'll try and remember what that is, and dig it out for you. There's a couple of really good ones being in terms of not having to, not having to keep on replace the filtration system, which is very key. And as I mentioned before, this is what going and making your house somewhere that lots of plants are in. It's what the Japanese call Shinrin Kuo, or forest bathing. I can't really speak very good Japanese, obviously, but forest bathing, it's where because the plants generally, they're taking carbon dioxide, they release natural polyphenols and essential oils. Have also been very healing for the lungs, and they can reduce cortisol. So it's a very, very big part of stress management. And having plants in your offices is why if you go into spas and therapy, it's amazing to me. This is what the hospitals don't. You go into hospitals, it's very clinic based. They feel terrible. The energy in there is terrible. You go into a spa or somewhere that's meant to be healing for you. Great music, lovely, relaxing music, good plants in there. They always seem to reduce cortisol. They have very good impact in cleaning the air. Excuse me. And there's also a NASA clean air study where they identified over a dozen different houseplants that actually act as natural bioremediants, and they clean up the air. And you feel good around them. Things like English ivy, peace lily, I think aloe vera plant, lots of these things. Having these around your offices, having them in your home is very good. I don't know what my phone is there playing up for. No idea. But yeah, so you can do a lot of research. You can do a lot of research into this. I don't know why Siri's playing up in the background. So yeah, very, very good. And you can put these plants all over your home. So it goes beyond just not simply smoking. You need to actually make a concerted effort to clean up the air around you. And if you are a smoker, the good news is you can actually reverse a lot of the lung damage done within 12 months. And there's some great research on a couple of things that can help you. Number one's a full spectrum antioxidant. A lot of these antioxidants on the market aren't great. I love Living Fuel for that. There's some great other companies out there, but Living Fuel, in terms of getting everything your body needs in one scoop, is going to be phenomenal. And you can have other things like taurine, very good. That comes in high amounts, of course, in Red Bull, but I don't want you to go and have Red Bull. Red Bull's actually been banned in France, but you can get taurine as a single supplement. You can buy taurine powder or taurine capsules. It can come in supplemental form. Very, very good. And these have been studied to help heal the lung damage and heal up the lungs if you have been smoking. So, don't smoke is number one, but go much more beyond that, and try and understand the air quality of your home. Get in air filtration systems, put in plants, or move around into some sort of forest area if you have to. So it's really, really important. And talking about forest and plants, number two thing that every single Blue Zone does is they have an intake of wild plants, herbs, and spices. This is based on a concept called hormesis, and you're going to hear me talk about this quite a lot today. The idea of hormesis is that things would kill you, things that are bad for you in large amounts, actually increase your body's stress resilience and make you stronger in small amounts. Things like exercise, cold, heat, sunlight radiation, all these things can kill you if you do too much of them, but they actually make you much more resilient in small amounts. And the same can be said of plants. Plants have a natural built-in defense mechanisms because they don't, if you look at an animal, you try and hunt and kill an animal, they've got hooves, claws, things that can scratch you up and kill you, talons, for example. And so they can do a lot of damage to you. But for a plant, it hasn't got that, so they've got a defense mechanism built into them. So people, for example, or animals that eat it might give them gut disorders, for example. So it's a kind of natural defense mechanism that plants have built in. So when you eat plants, especially dark wild plants in small amounts, the type you get from gardens, from farmers markets, etc., like small bitter plants, not the big fluffy sugary produce we get from the grocery store, you actually get a great deal of hormesis from these plants. And in the case of plants, there's actually a name for it, and it's called xenohormesis. Now, there's a very popular book out there today called The Plant Paradox by Dr. Stephen Gundry, and it's also like a very popular thing like the carnivore diet, saying that these plants can really damage you, and you shouldn't be eating that many plants in general because they have these natural defense built-in mechanisms that can do damage to your gut. And this is actually true, but the thing is, it's only true for people who actually have gut damage, existing gut damage, maybe a gut dysbiosis, leaky gut syndrome, people with IBS, for example. However, if you've healed your gut and you've taken the measures to clean up your diet, and you're not eating a lot of gluten, soy, wheat, and pasteurized dairy, and caffeine and alcohol, your gut can do just fine with wild plants, herbs, and spices. And sometimes, before introducing a lot of these bitters, herbs, and spices, things like nettle and mint and thyme and rosemary and curry and turmeric and cayenne, putting these into diets on a daily basis can do a lot of good. And many of these blue zones are using over 100 different types of herbs and plants or spices in their diet. And you may have to go through, if you've got a gut issue, we can help you with that. 100%. We deal with lots of people with gut issues. IBS, Crohn's, celiac disease, colitis. And if you have got something like that, you probably have to go through about 4 to 8 weeks of eating a very plain, simple diet just to heal your gut, maybe even more, depending on how bad it's got. Things like bone broth, sweet potato puree. So what I do with my clients, we take out a lot of hard to digest foods. You eat very easy to digest foods, pre-digested foods. And then you can start to reintroduce these plants and herbs and spices back in. And that at that point, people's guts are actually able to handle this. But the big message here is that all the blue zones, all these longevity hotspots, they eat a lot of small, dark, bitter, ugly plants, herbs, spices, and especially produce in its wild form. I talk about a lot of books as we go through this, but one of the very, very good books for this is called Eating on the Wild Side by Joe Robinson. And one of the cool antidotes from that book, it actually is like, this will highlight the plant built-in defense mechanisms to you. If you're going to have, say, cow for lunch, the night before, if you take that cow and you tear it up into pieces and put it in like a Ziploc bag, or you put it in the refrigerator, you actually get more antioxidants from that plant and more hormesis from the cow, because it's actually being eaten, because it actually thinks it's being eaten by a wild animal. And what it does there, it upregulates all the natural built-in defense mechanisms. So when you eat it the next day, you're getting an even bigger hormetic effect. And that's a very good book for learning more about how to eat wild plants and how they work in the body, and how to find them and eat them and prepare them. The third thing that you see is an avoidance of packaged foods. The blue zones, they don't eat anything in packaged foods really. When you go into their cupboards, it's all fresh produce. They're not eating Mars bars and Twixes and cereal bars and even these protein bars. They're not eating things out of like crisps and biscuits. If you look into their pantry, you're not going to see rancid oils either, in terms of vegetable oil, cottonseed oil, canola oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, rapeseed oil. And you just don't see that. You see all healthy oils. You don't see packaged food. So, even today, when you look at these processed foods, and even the ones that are meant to be good, quote unquote, good and healthy for you, like these health food bars, they generally look in there and they've got some form of rancid vegetable oil, or cottonseed oil, or canola oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, and they've got some sort of sugar in there, whether it be organic coconut sugar or agave syrup, which is basically just high fructose corn syrup, which is terrible. And I don't care what they've got in them, even if it's like special rainbow sugar, whatever it is. It's essentially crap vegetable oil and sugar. And the problem with that is these two things, if you're tracking your blood sugar and your biomarkers, these are not good. And if you want to feel good for a long period of time, your insulin, or your sugar response, your insulin markers are very, very key. Your glycemic variability, and you want to monitor how your blood glucose goes up and down. Really, you want to try and be as stable as possible. Things out that you can get, I'm not a big fan of it, but Dexcom G6, so any diabetics, it wear underneath the skin, and it can, a lot of diabetics get this, and it can can monitor your blood sugar over the day rather than having to prick your thumb all the time. And you'll notice, for example, if you wear this, or some people will notice, certain foods can just drive up your blood glucose, and that just shows you that you're actually allergic to these foods. There's another measurements you can take, hemoglobin A1C. You may have seen this. You may have heard of this if you do some blood tracking yourself. But you can get a 3-month snapshot of your average blood sugar levels. If you've got diabetes, definitely should be doing this. The second thing is inflammation, and you can get a test for your inflammation called CRP. You can have your doctor run this, or you can go and get this from different companies, and it can just tell you how inflamed your body is. And it's really important. Your inflammation and your blood glucose levels, they're extremely important for longevity. And the problem is most processed foods, packaged foods, they're going to have sugar, which causes your blood glucose, have some form of sugar, which causes your blood glucose to go up. And they're going to have some form of vegetable oil, which causes inflammation to go up. And then down. And you're throwing these numbers out of whack every single time you eat any of these processed foods. So when you look at the blue zones, they don't have that. Open up the refrigerators, as I said before, you go into their pantries. They have fresh foods, fruits, vegetables, lean meats, even fatty cuts of meat. They're eating out of mason jars. And this is why even on my site, I don't have any cereal bars or processed foods, because I just don't think you need them. One of my first mentors always said to me, what's the point of being full of nothing? And it's true, if you're hungry, you can just get over that hunger and just wait 10 minutes, the hunger will go, and you can wait for your meal. It's something that I'm not big into. I'd rather go hungry and let my body have time without anything than keep putting stuff in just because you think you need to eat something. And when you're shopping at these, you look at even some of these juice bars these days, and they always have these like processed nut balls and things like that. I'm like, I'd rather wait to have my poison in the form of a few beers with my friends on the weekend and constantly be putting in processed foods in my body all week and processed sugar. It's just not for me. I'd rather have food for the soul at that time. And so as much as this stuff's convenient, I'd say just carry around a banana with you or something like that, rather than put these foods into your body. You want to be eating foods that your ancestors would have eaten, and they wouldn't be eating anything out of a packet or processed foods, things like cereal bars, for example, or these protein bars. Number 4 with these blue zones is that we see they all get a high amount of legumes. Now, lentils are a perfect example of a legume, and legumes are really high in things like fatty acids and amino acids and very nutrient dense. They're very low on the glycemic index too, so they don't spike your blood sugar up and down. But you don't have to have chili every day for lunch. You're not necessarily jumping on the bean and legume bandwagon, because people with gut issues don't do well with legumes. So you need to make sure your gut's working well first. And they're not just eating lentils in these blue zones. They're actually fermenting them. They're soaking them. They're sprouting them. And it's one of the things that people always talk about with like these superfoods, they try and incorporate them into diet, but we do it in a pretty bad way in Western society. For example, quinoa or quinoa, people like to call it. Everyone wants to go out there and buy quinoa because it's good for you. But what people don't realise is, they just go out there and they're cooking quinoa and they wonder why after they've eaten it, they've got gas, bloating, pain in the gut. And like you go to the toilet and you actually pass your stool and you actually have pieces of quinoa in your stool. Now, what I don't realise is that a lot of these places that eat things like quinoa and these superfoods, like for example, when you go to South America, they're rinsing it first, they're putting it in a glass mason jar overnight, they're washing off all the irritants on the outside of the quinoa, because quinoa is actually covered in a soap-like irritant called saponins. And which are highly irritable to the human gut. So what you need to do is get rid of these. It's like when you put soak your nuts overnight to get rid of all the enzymatic inhibitors. And so this is the thing. So what you need to do is you actually need to get rid of these saponins first. And because in South America they actually use these to wash their clothing. That's how intense these soap-like irritants are. So in many cases, foods like legumes or quinoa, it comes down to soaking, fermentation, sprouting, and a lot of these old world preparation methods. So look, I don't think, having said that, I don't think the magic of legumes lies in their nutrient density per se or something else magical about them. But here's the most important thing: they're a low glycemic index food, as a term Tim Ferriss popularised in his book The 4 Hour Body a decade ago. They're a slow carb, so they keep your glycemic index low. And as a matter of fact, we see some societies like the Quinoa and Kitava, two other blue zone hotspots. They don't do legumes, but they do purple potato and taro, a form of starch that I think is more easily digested, but it's also a slow release carbohydrate. So the overarching message here is just make sure if you're consuming carbs, make sure they're slow releasing. You can do things like combine them with fats and protein that are going to slow down the release of them. You don't have to just eat these. It's the way you food combine. It's very, very important as well. And so go and get a glycemic index chart and see the difference between like a potato or a lentil or a peanut. See what's slow. But if you need to, you can combine foods to make them slow. Because people don't realise that whole wheat bread, for example, people think which is brilliant for them. It's things that you should just be at the very least, or should be eating the very least, because they're actually 2 slices of whole wheat bread actually spikes your blood sugar levels higher than a Snickers bar, and most people will be very surprised at that. That's the amount of sugar they've got in them. So these whole grains, whole wheats, etc., they're very high on the glycemic index. So something like a sweet potato or a purple potato is actually very low. So get to know the glucose rate release or the glycemic index of these carbohydrates that you eat. Very, very important. So other things that they do, number 5, is they actually incorporate low-level physical activity during the day. You don't see blue zone people going to the people living in the blue zones. I should say blue zone people. People living in blue zones going to gyms and doing what we do, which is basically exercise in a bottle. An hour in the gym, and the rest of the day we're sitting down. What they do is they're typically out in the sunshine. They're lifting rocks, walking distances, carrying water, building fences, hauling crops, etc. out down the road, or they're milking their goats, and they're basically living the life that's outside, letting them to move throughout the day. And gyms, as I said before, they're just a fabrication of the post-industrial era where we've been relegated to sitting on our bums for 8 hours a day. So we have to somehow get that primal urge to move and get out into a normal day. So even if you do go to the gym for an hour a day, what I want to try and do is make the gym an option at the end of the day. Or even if you do go at the beginning of the day, you like to do that, that's fine. But I want you to try and keep moving throughout the day. I'm the same. I do a lot of this. For example, I'm on my computer now, standing or sitting as I record this. I'm at a computer sometimes writing articles, on the phone to clients or potential clients. I can be exactly the same. So I need to get my exercise in a day. And what I do a lot of the time is I sometimes put my alarm on my clock, and every hour I get up and I do 10 lunges or 10 press ups, or I have a kettlebell in my room and just do 10 swings, or I go walk up and down the stairs. Because I know it's not possible for you guys to go outside and start building fences and doing things like that, but you can stimulate your body throughout the day. Just make sure if you can put a pull-up bar in the office, for example, you can have standing workstations. Things that I do, I like to just keep moving throughout the day, get up and do 10 jumping jacks, or just keep your phone calls for the day in between a certain time. We can go outside and walk and take the calls. Very, very powerful to do. Simple things like that. So structure your life so that at the end of the day, going to the gym is an option, not a necessity, because you've engineered your environment to work around it. Even if it's just like, if you can put like a deadlift bar in your office, getting up every hour or so, doing 10 deadlifts, just doing things like that. I know it sounds, if you can't do it, that's fine. Just get up and maybe every hour get up and walk up and down the stairs, and throughout the day, instead of taking the escalators at the station, take the stairs. Walk up the stairs. Very, very simple. Park a long way away from the shop at the car park, if you're walking in, all these things, rather than parking right next to the front door, make sure you walk. Just going for a walk in the day, at lunch hour, going for a walk half an hour and then walk half an hour back. All things you can do, Obviously, if you are a sportsman and you've got something to compete for, like I play football and I love to get in the gym and do things and you want to compete for that, that's fine. No, go and do your workout that you need to do. Absolutely fine. But the fact is, these people who engage in low-level physical activity during the day and occasionally sprint or play a little bit of tennis or football, whatever, that's the way to live past 100 and feel good doing it, because their body's not broken at the end of the day. So this is what they do. Very, very important to keep moving throughout the day. Number 6 is social engagement. Now, this is a big one, because there's a lot. Even though we're meant to be so connected through social media, there's a growing epidemic of loneliness right now. Look at the book Our Generation. Teenagers, in terms of interaction, I think the millennials are the last people that see each other 2 or 3 times a week. Sex with us, for example, is still quite strong, whereas the lower generations, they're watching porn rather than going out and having sex. They're messaging each other on social media. They're seeing each other less. They're less involved in activities. Facebook friends, Instagram posts, Twitter. It's ridiculous. And these virtual reality devices, and even porn, for example, there's no real face-to-face human interaction between a lot of these younger generations, and even the older generations that get into these social media spaces. There's nothing that can compete with being with a person, flesh and blood, in the same room to them. You're exposed to their pheromones. You're getting exposed to their electrical signal that their brain produces, their heart produces. You're getting exposed to the oxytocin hormone that you release when you touch them or hug them or shake their hand. You simply cannot stimulate that in a digital format, and it's something we need to get back to. As a matter of fact, there's even some evidence that if you eat food close to bedtime, it can mess up with your sleep and can also not let your mitochondria heal so much if you have a sleep right before bed. But I'd say to people, break that rule every night of the week if you could, if it means you're having a family dinner, because that should be on your highest pedestal. It's one of the things you see. Think of the French paradox, where even though the French are eating loads of cheese and gluten and wheat and smoking, drinking alcohol, they're still one of the leanest countries around, because they eat together and they take time eating, and it's communication. It's time that everyone gets together, and that human interaction, it's huge. So even if you've got kids and you're rushing all over the place, taking them to football practice, or if you're in America, American football practice, or whatever it be, baseball, cricket, jiu-jitsu, gymnastics, whatever it is, coming back and sitting down at the table with them is massively, massively important. Or even sitting there playing games like Pictionary or cards or whatever it could be, talking about the day. And it's really important. This is one of the things I'm working on as well, because being someone who works from home alone, I can be alone a lot. This is why I like to go out and see my friends, if we play football in the evening or do whatever, just going, because I need that human interaction. It can be a very lonely place, the world, so getting out there and seeing your friends and family, going for walks with them, maybe playing a round of golf or going on the beach or just having dinner with them, it's very, very important. And when you look at these blue zones, they eat together, they play together, they hang out together. Like, you simply cannot stimulate that digitally. And it has to be physical, social interaction. So analyze yourself and ask yourself, how often are you eating alone? How often is the majority of your social interaction occurring online or digitally, if I can speak? And if it's happening the majority of the time, you need to fix that. If you want to live a long time, human interaction, prioritizing flesh and blood, physical relationships with family and friends is really, really important. Now, the next one that we see, number 7, I think we're on in the blue zones, is that they all drink every day. Women are drinking about an average of 1 drink a day. Men are averaging about 2 drinks a day. and they're all very healthy forms of alcohol. Now, it's very easy to get out there and just pick your favourite drink off the menu, but there's certain things you can do to make your alcoholic beverage pretty clean. Very, very easy to get a triple distilled vodka or gin. They're very clean burning alcohols, two of the cleanest burning alcohols that you can get. You get on top of the rocks with a couple of wedges of lime and lemon, a selection of house bitters. Why? Because none of that sugar has none of that's got sugar or fructose in it. And when you have a bitter meal, very similar to the wild plants I was telling you about earlier, it enhances something called your first phase insulin response to the meal that you eat afterwards. That means that your pancreas releases a little bit of insulin when you have an alcoholic drink, and that's rich in bitters and digestives or thyme or rosemary or whatever that bar happens to have. As far as the bitter is back behind the bar. And when that occurs, your blood glucose response to the meal is lower. So you can see how these things are strategies to start to lower your blood sugar levels, and they put these things together. It makes a big difference. So, for example, if I'm going to have a cocktail, I generally go for like a vodka. In fact, I'd rather have a clean, rather than an artificial sweetener, I'd rather have a clean vodka or gin. I generally have a vodka on the like with ice, have some lemon in there, squeeze lemon and lime. It's going to help cleanse the body as well, nice clean. And I'd rather actually have real sugar than any sort of aspartame or sweetener. And if I got like a real lemonade behind the bar, I might have that, like a real lemonade, something like Fever Tree do a very clean lemonade. Or you can have a little bit of club soda. Either way, very good. The other thing that people really like to drink, I'm not into it, but it's biodynamic wine. A lot of wines, especially if the US is worse than us. In the US, they allow like 75 to 80 different pesticides and herbicides in the wine, and they heavily irrigate the wine crops in the US. So it allows for very sugary, fruity, flavorful, big, bold grape, but that also increases the amount of sulfate content and increases the amount of sugar content and lowers the amount of antioxidant contact compared to old wine preparation methods, which they don't heavily irrigate the crops. It's very, very similar to the xenohormesis concept you already learned about. Small amounts of alcohol can be good for the body, and a small, less sugary antioxidant concentrated grape is much better. So getting the wine from countries that you probably know, if you're in a restaurant, you order a top glass of wine from France, Italy, or New Zealand. Those three countries do a pretty good job of using these old worldwide non-pesticide, non-herbicide, biodynamic forms of wine preparation. There's also companies out there like Fit Vine Wine or Dry Farm Wine that will ship to your home using these methods. And there's other ones, I think, across Europe and the UK you can get. So if you want to drink a glass I don't do this, but if you want to drink a glass or two of alcohol every night, that's fine. I prefer to have a few drinks with my friends on a weekend after football, but most people, they do this binge. Like, even if you see people, students in college, get absolutely plastered Monday through Friday. They don't have a drink. Saturday, Sunday, they get absolutely plastered, and it becomes a cycle. Now, you can have one or two drinks a night and still feel fantastic. All these blue zone populations do this. Maybe not the Loma Linda, the Seventh-day Adventist population. I think that's one of the few exceptions, but otherwise, all of them are drinking, but they're drinking very, very differently to how we drink. So don't feel guilty about drinking. Just choose your alcohol wisely. Say choose your poison wisely, and just make sure you're not going OTT. And things you can do, if you take when you're about to take things like milk thistle before to prepare your liver, you can take it afterwards. You can take your probiotics to help prepare your gut. Things like supplements like Mega Hydrate from Dr. Patrick Flanagan, phenomenal for hydrating the body, and even having hydrogen-rich water. Things that you can do to mitigate the effects of alcohol to make sure you're hydrated afterwards. So alcohol is toxic, but as you've learned, there are things that are bad for you in large amounts that are actually good for you in small amounts because they make you more stress resilient. Now, the next one is something that I use daily, and that is calorie restriction or fasting. Now, obviously, there's lots of talk about fasting these days. It's become very, very popular. But one of the top books is the Longevity Diet and the Fasting Bible. And there's like the AMD fast and the IF fast and the FHPT fast. And there's like the Warrior Diet and 5-2. And it's always different fasting protocols, different acronyms now. And people are getting into it, probably because it's much easier just to not eat food than it is to try and eat a small amount of foods you like. But, you don't need to completely starve yourself and be cold and hungry and have no concentration and ready to basically eat your leg to get the benefits of fasting. You don't have to skip breakfast and lunch and eat only dinner. There's many ways you can do it. And it appears the magic of fasting lies in the fact when you go through this long period of time between meals without food, because your body goes into something called cellular autophagy. Now, cellular autophagy is basically where the body starts to eat all the dead, decaying disease cells, and it starts to replace them with healthy, young, new cells. It turns over the old cells, basically. And this occurs when you go for a long period of time without eating, but it's not synonymous with calorie restriction. As a matter of fact, I eat anywhere between 2,000 to 3,000 calories a day. I know some people are eating between 5,000 to 6,000 calories a day because they're competing in professional sports. And people that have a very high metabolism can do that as well. I'm very active, so between 2,000 to 3,000 a day. Some days I regulate as well. Some days it might be 3, some days it might be 1, some days it might be 4,000, some days it might be 2. It's the best way to go about it. But I'm only eating those calories when I eat during an 4 to 8 hour window during the day. And I generally fast every day for at least 14 to 18 hours. Some people do it between 12 to 16 hours. That's absolutely fine. And then I will eat in that 4 to 8 hour window. So, for example, for me, generally between 12 to 8 or 1 to 9. So the idea of intermittent fasting is going long periods of time during a 24-hour cycle without eating any food, which allows you to get a lot of benefits of fasting without the calorie restrictions. So you're not starving yourself, you're still getting those calories in, you're just giving your body a rest from food. And you don't need to be eating food all the whole time. Your digestive tract isn't meant to continuously be digesting food. You're meant to give it a rest. It's really, really important. And now there are some benefits to calorie restriction too. Of course there are. And this is where the research by a doctor called Dr. Walter Longo comes in. He wrote a book called The Longevity Diet. Now, what he showed us is that 2 to 4 times a year, simply by having a 5-day period where you actually do consume consume less calories or restrict calorie consumption. In this case, it's about 40% of what you'd normally take in. So if you normally eat 2,000 calories, you have a 5-day period where you're eating just about 800 calories. This gives you a lot of the same benefits as daily calorie restriction, such as intermittent fasting that you do all year round. So, you can do this. There's lots of different ways to do this. You can do this. I like to do a little liver cleanse, 3 or 4 times a year. Some people do it spring, summer, beginning of autumn, and winter, different periods. And during that period, I just lower my calories. When I'm doing a liver cleanse, I will generally lower my calories because it's naturally what I do, and I up certain things, and probably having about 500 to 800 calories a day. Other ways to do it is an Ardovate protocol called Kitachari, which is you make a stew for 5 days and you just have a couple of scoops of that throughout the day. And you can have you can go, and sometimes you can do it's a 5-day fast where you do 12 to 6 hours without eating, then you can have this stew, or you can have if you do a different liver cleanse or any other cleanse you can do. Sometimes people just do a water fast, as long as you're getting in your minerals and vitamins in there. Make sure you're working with someone if you don't know what you're doing with that. And what I do once a week as well is generally a 24-hour fast, where I do like a dinner to dinner time fast, where I'll eat about 6 o'clock on a Sunday, and I won't eat until 6 the next day, and it just gives me an extra benefit of that cellular autophagy that goes on. And I said before, there's lots of different fasting protocols. Find out what works for you. This is the thing, make sure it's doable and sustainable. Is the one that you'll do is the one that you're more likely to, or the one that you enjoy is the one you're more likely to sustain. Which is why I've been doing my protocol for 5 years. I don't eat breakfast, and I eat during the hours of like 12 to 8, and that's me. I try and give myself 2 to 3 hours before I go to bed to stop eating. So that works. And if you can do a 24-hour a day fast once every month, or once every 2 weeks, or once every week, then that's brilliant. And your body will do a very, very good cleanup by doing that. And for women, men have got a much more robust hormonal profile than women have. So women, I wouldn't be fasting every day. I'd say 3, 4, maybe 5 days max out of the week. And then even if you're having a bone broth or a bit of fruit in the morning, that's going to be very, very good for you. So on to the next thing the Blue Zones do. And that is, we all see people in the Blue Zones possessing a very strong life purpose. Now, I know some of this stuff can come across as a bit woo-woo and all this sort of like, you say, oh, that's not scientific. Well, it is. I mean, it's been proved time and time again. And, I think it's your how can take any sort of resilience once you've got a why. And, I firmly believe in this. The Japanese call it, I think it's akagi. The Italians call it the plan de vida, the plan for life. Everybody should have a reason for getting up in the morning, and a very clear, distinct idea of the reason that they exist. And I think you should be able to close your eyes at any given moment when, like, it's really stressful in the world. Maybe you've got people at work asking this of you and that of you, or you're cooking the children dinner, or you're in traffic, or like the emails are flying from your computer inbox and you're stressed out trying to catch a bus or the Uber or a plane, and you're running through life trying to get all the things done, all the things that life expects of you. You should be able to, at any given point, close your eyes no matter how big the stress is, and in one succinct statement be able to say your life's purpose. So my purpose is to get the truth out to people so they can live a life free from pain and frustration, and live life on their terms. My purpose is to let people know they can live a life free of pain and frustration so they can live life on their terms. That's my statement, to empower people, to give them the truth so they understand what it takes and what they can do to start living life back on their terms again. And so this is something that I think you all need to do. Be able to say, this is why having a purpose is so important. It's why happiness, everyone goes, like pursuit of happiness. Well, happiness, humans aren't actually meant to be happy. Happiness is a feeling, it's fleeting, same as sadness. But having a purpose, that's always there. It doesn't matter how happy or sad you are. When you've got a purpose, you can keep moving forward. And it's very, 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 very strong. It's why people in these blue zones, very few of them ever retire. Most of them live their lives, getting out of bed every morning, living out their purpose. Really, really important. So, I'd highly encourage you, if you don't have that one sentence that you can say that defines your purpose in life, then to develop a sentence like that. And it's actually lots of great books out there. Jordan Peterson talks about this a lot, about your purpose, his sort of stuff, why having a purpose is so important. 12 Rules for Life, really good book for that. It's another great book by the author Mastin Kipp, Kipp, about this phenomenal book that talks about this. And so you need to understand how important this is. That book by Mastin Kipp called Claim Your Power. It's a 40-day journey to discover the hidden blocks that keep you stuck and finally thrive in your life's unique purpose. And you just need to understand that, it's really, really important. And so this is a thing, like, I've heard a lot about it. I'm just about to read the book as well from Mark Manson, which is the subtle art of not giving a fuck. And I've heard people say, I'm really looking forward to it. But I remember reading little quotes of it, and he says this, do things that make you forget to eat and poop. I mean, things that forget to make you eat and poop, they're the things that you love doing, right? So it's not ever a chore. Like, work is never really work when you actually enjoy what you're doing. So having that purpose, moving towards that, it's definitely the way to go. And as you begin to identify these type of things, you're going to be on the track to identifying what your true purpose in life is, and what actually is there to keep you going and keep you alive for a long period of time. Because if you're waking up every morning doing stuff you hate, not living your life's true purpose, and that's going to assist. It's not going to assist you with longevity at all. In fact, it's going to do the opposite. It's like you can be eating all the best foods in the world, you can be drinking the best water, and doing everything right. But if you wake up every morning hating your job, and you wake up every morning despising the people you work with and dreading going in, then that's how, you're still going to be hugely toxic, because the mind's hugely powerful. And if you these people, it creates cancer, it's hugely acidic, and it's never going to be good for you. So this is why you need to find your life's purpose and move towards it and do things. You say, what my purpose is. You need to go through life and find it. It's not just going to jump out on you. You need to go through life and find it. And so that's very, very powerful, having the life's purpose. Now, number 10 is low amounts of stress. Now, obviously, of course, this is another thing, like don't smoke, don't eat processed foods and packaged foods, and most of you are probably already aware of that. But here's the problem in this. Everyone wants to talk about in the nutrition world and the health world, talking about like what's the best herb, or right, what do you think of turmeric? What do you think of ashwagandha? What do you think of this supplement? What do you think of that supplement? What's the best app to get to sleep? And everyone wants to wear like listen to Headspace, or wear like their sleep mask and take ayahuasca and go and take psychedelics. But all these things are all from the outside in, what we call exogenous. Exogenous, I think that's what you say. And these are ways, like exogenous ways to control stress and cortisol. And these are all dependent on some external thing. But we've got something in us that's very, very powerful for controlling our own stress. It's something that I do every morning, and that is breathe. It's your breath. Every morning I get up and I have my morning routine, and one of the things I do is breathe in different ways. Energetic breathing, then followed by meditative breathing. And I think everyone should learn how to breathe to control stress. When you strip everything away, your supplements, and your vagus nerve stimulators, and your app, etc. If you take all that away, and you just go out in the forest and camp with no electronic stuff, and I mean, would you be able to sleep? Would you be able to do what you need to do? And the best way to do that, the best way to control it, is actually with your breath. I mean, have you done a yoga session and at the end you go into your deep breathing, Vipassana, I think it's called. Don't quote me on that. But some of the nicest time you just lay there, deep breaths, and just relax. Every single indigenous hunter-gatherer or ancestral society has some sort of breath work in place. And I think we're just chronically stressed all the time. That's why people, they go away on holiday, they relax and they feel so much better. They even fall pregnant when they're on holiday, because I don't think people understand how much just low-level stress we're under all the time, thinking we've got to get this done, got to get that done. It's really important. If you can calm that down every day, one of the best ways to get into your parasympathetic nervous system is with 10 deep breaths. If you can just calm that down, it's brilliant. And there's lots of different ways. I really like box breathing, which is like you're breathing in for 8 seconds, you hold for 8 seconds, you breathe out for 8 seconds, you hold for 8 seconds. Or there's nostril breathing, you cover up the right nostril, you breathe in, and then you breathe out for the left nostril. Breathe out. I know you couldn't see me doing that then, but I was just doing it. Or there's, 4, 7, 8 breathing, 4 count in, 7 count hold, 8 count out. And making sure you breathe through your belly. When you come in, you're breathing in, you're filling up your belly, then you're filling up your chest, you're holding as you're breathing out, you're pushing your belly button towards your spine. Really powerful. So breath is one of the ways you can really control your stress and get yourself into your parasympathetic nervous system. If I can speak, your parasympathetic nervous system. Number 11 is, I suppose it can be controversial, but I mean, not really, seeing as most of the world do engage in some of this. It's some kind of spiritual discipline or belief in a higher power. Well, if you don't believe in God, just talk about the universe. And this one's really interesting because when you look at this, a lot of these religions, they have elements that have already built into them. I've already discussed, they have built into them their system in this process, such as fasting and breath work, and other spiritual disciplines. They have like meditation, silence, solitude, devotion, study, prayer, worship, community, all very interesting. And because in our day and age, especially in Westernized society, we're very good at trying to like biohack or make our own things with this, how we go through life, like trying to upgrade IQ and our brain. And we're looking so much into science, and we're forgetting to listen to our intuition and our feeling. All about thinking with a left brain logic, nothing about feeling and feeling the energy and how you feel and listening to your body. Intuition's massive. And it's like we're very good at building muscle and fitness and working on our bodies, but very few of us think about what it's like to be human and what happens to our soul and our spirit, which is really important. And being engaged in some kind of spiritual discipline, I think is very important, whether it's religious or spiritual. I don't mean like, oh, I'm so spiritual, man. I mean like taking time just to sometimes sit there and contemplate, introspection. As Paul Chek talks about, we have Dr. Diet, all about the food you eat, Dr. Movement, about the right movement, Dr. Happy, what makes you happy or what gives you a purpose, and then Dr. Quiet, which is all about introspection. And it's really, really important. Whether that be waking up and putting out a morning journal, writing down things you're grateful for. That's what I do every morning, 3 things I'm grateful for. Then like doing some breath work and waiting a little while before you eat your breakfast, or having some fasting, so you fast until lunch. And you tap into some of those benefits of autophagy. Simple things that spiritual disciplines, and look at all the top people in the world in every profession, they have these disciplines built in. And what else is important is I think a lot of these people that go through these, they have hope because they've gone beyond believing that what they're doing is not important. They've gone beyond believing that they're just a bunch of flesh and blood flying through this universe at 68,000 miles an hour with no one at the wheel, who can try and make the most money, people can sleep with the most people, who can get the biggest house, who can survive the longest. So they believe that what they're doing and how they're living in their life is all part of a bigger picture. It's a magical story, and I think that they know everything's being taken care of. I think that knowing that something is going to be taken care of by a bigger power, higher power, universe, we've all got a purpose in life. I think that's huge, and I know it might be controversial to some people, but knowing that at the end of the day, everything is going to be just all right because it's all taken care of by the universe or God or whatever it is. I think that's very, very powerful, and we see that again and again and again over in these blue zones. Element of religion or spiritual practices that they do, I think it's very, very powerful. And then finally, something that we all like to do. I'm pretty sure nothing would be complete without talking about very interesting one, sex. You guys, from we see from yeast models to fungus to fruit flies to rodents, all the way up to humans. That the more times that you're making babies or being fertile, or at least sending your body the message that you're trying to make babies, aka sex, on a regular basis, starting at an earlier age in life and engaging in that for as far into life as possible, you live longer. And this is based on the idea that from an ancestral standpoint, nature doesn't want you to keep living organisms around for a long period of time that aren't actually useful to the propagation of that living organism or species. It doesn't want to keep you around if you're not doing much for Mother Nature. So I'm not saying you have to go out there and not wear condoms and have 24 kids, but what I am saying is the more you can engage in regular and frequent sex, the more that you can plan and prioritize that, and the more that you can even just take care of your fertility. It is huge. And this comes down to eating and living right if you need to, bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, if you really need to. But otherwise, it's just taking care of your life, living the right way, diet and lifestyle and practices, and it's an amazing anti-aging tactic as well. I feel like it's really, really good. Things like DHA and progesterone as well, especially for men looking into things like testosterone and growth hormone replacement, can be very, very powerful if you need it. If you've done that much damage that your body needs it, can be very, very powerful. Anyway, these are the type of strategies that actually allow you to stay robust and fertile later in life. And it also allows you to remain what nature considers to be a reproductive entity and very useful. And what we see is like 90 to 95-year-old men in Italy, Aciroli, I think it's called, in Italy, having sex. And there's a great article about this in the Wall Street Journal. They're basically consuming bitters and eating wild plants and having a ton of rosemary, and they're having sex like 4 times a week. And these guys are just incredibly virile, active old men. So, a lot of this stuff you can weave together. It's just like eat, don't eat processed foods, eat plants, have loads of sex, spend time with people, and it's huge. These 12 things that all the blue zones do. I mean, I think it's really, really important. I don't really want to go too deep into like hyperbaric oxygen chambers and cryotherapy too much. I mean, cold and hot is huge, something that I do every day. Like even just having a cold shower. I don't want to go much into oxygen therapy chambers, but if you can just get some sort of heat or cold, I mean, infrared saunas are phenomenal. So the cold. I've done quite a few articles on this, the way they can boost your immune system, stimulate your auxiliary nervous system, increase testosterone, increase fat burning. All these things are phenomenal. But the 12 things that we've talked about there are huge. I might do another podcast later on the new age things, but I think it's really important for us to get those 12 things locked in. Very, very important to get them locked in, because the blue zones, if you haven't read the book, go and read them. These are things that these guys are doing all the time, and it's just how they live their life. So trying to get that into your daily life. And as always, stay away from toxic things. Trying to reduce your EMF exposure is going to be huge. Obviously, not living next to like a geopathical fault line or a cell tower, things like this, of course. But going through these 12 things that they do in the blue zone is going to be absolutely huge. So if you haven't read the book, guys and girls, read that. Otherwise, get onto these 12 things and try and make eating with your family a priority. Try and get daily exercise throughout your day. Making sure if you're going to drink alcohol, try and drink it the best way possible. Eating real foods, not processed packaged rubbish. Having as much sex as possible. All these things are brilliant. So anyway, that's it for today's show, guys and girls. That's what I wanted to get onto today. The 12 things that the blue zones do. If you haven't read the book, I said before, give it a read. And yeah, I've got some exciting guests coming up for you on different topics. But I'm going to try and do some more of these solo casts. I think they're actually quite enjoyable, and I quite enjoy getting the content out to you. But yeah, we can go into the other stuff, more advanced stuff later on. But do these basic things, and you're going to be on the way to living a long and healthy life. Alright, otherwise, that's it for today, guys and girls. As always, if you're heading over to www.reviveyourself.co, we've got all our articles and other podcasts there. And if you are dealing with a health issue and you are looking for some one-to-one support and guidance and to actually finally overcome it, then send me an email at ryan@reviveyourself.co, or go to www.reviveyourself.co, click on the contact link and send me a message there, and I'll be in touch as soon as possible. Otherwise, guys and girls, that's it for today. Stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
If you're struggling with gut issues, such as gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, indigestion, heartburn, and want to finally be able to eat the foods you love without the crippling after effects, then don't forget to head over to reviveyourself.co and pick up your free copy of The Healing Health Paradigm today.